with one of our guides, Paul Freeman, who's recently walked the Dales Way for Shepherd's Walks holiday. I'm going to ask him a few questions and he can hopefully tell us a little bit more and enthuse us to walk the trail. So, welcome Paul here this afternoon. How would you describe the Dales Way as a trail?
I think it's, in terms of the landscape, I think it's a really interesting mix. So you've got the Yorkshire Dales and that fantastic limestone scenery, and you've got this section between one side and the other where you've got this high upland moorland that links the two when you go over the watershed, and then the final part when you leave the Dales and you go to the Lake District, and you've got that fantastic undulating landscape that then leads you towards the mountains of the Lake District. So in terms of the landscape, it's very varied, and I think the other interesting thing that was attractive about it was all along the way you've got some great religious history and archaeology and industrial history as well. So if you're into that side of things, then I'm sure you'll find this a really good walk to do.
Oh, sounds a very varied walk.
It is very varied, isn't it? Very varied.
So looking at the way that we ended up putting together, we actually made it into both a 7-day, 8-day, and we also then did a highlights package. So looking at the trail, Paul, in its entirety, it looks, I don't know, it's fascinating. We start in Ilkley, which is a place in its own right, and then really your first day walking, we do Ilkley to Burnsall, and I know we do it slightly different on some of the packages. So can you just tell us a little bit about the route from Ilkley to Burnsall and how it all pans out?
I got a real surprise, John, because you don't need to walk far from Ilkley before you start to break out into Wharfdale proper, and you kind of go around the corner, and then all of a sudden Wharfdale starts to open up, and you can see the moors in the distance, and then within a short time you start to see Bolton Abbey as well, which is a real iconic historical site.
And a big visitor attraction in its own right, Bolton Abbey.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Lots of tea shops around.
There are lots. There's a very good Victorian tea shop down by the river at Bolton Abbey, which I can recommend. But obviously, if you're there on a Saturday or Sunday around Bolton Abbey, it's quite busy. But again, you only need to walk a short distance from Bolton Abbey, and you're back on your own again. And that day, you also can visit the Strid, which is this fantastic gorge where the River Wharfe squeezes through a very narrow ravine. So that's really exciting to see that. And then again, once you pass beyond the Strid, you start to walk again through Wharfdale, which is really, really pretty.
And that's the Burnsall, which is where you stayed your first night then? Yeah,
Burnsall's a lovely little village.
Fantastic. And then you went from Burnsall to Hub Home, which was like a big day's walking, 16 miles. I know we've then adapted it, so we've split it up a little bit for the so you can do the way that you did it. You did it over 2 days. We can also now do it over 3 days, and that's our 8-day package. So quite a big day's walk from Burnsall to Hub Home, the way that you did it.
Yeah, Burnsall to Hub Home is a really, really great section, and probably the highlight is when you leave the valley at Grassington and you start to climb up above Wharfdale into the limestone scenery above there, and you get some fantastic views on that section before you finally then drop back down to Hubberhome at the end of Wharfdale. And the Hubberhome is a fantastic place to stay. I stayed in the George at Hubberhome, which is coaching in from the Middle Ages. Nice little place, great hosts there, and you'll also get to meet George the dog, which actually runs the pub, I think, or rules the pub anyway. So that's a really great section, and I can really recommend that. And I think depending on the time of the year that you do it, that section will change as well. When I did it, it was in the autumn, and the colours of the leaves were fantastic. If you do it in the early spring and summer, all that valley bottom will be full of flower meadows. So it'll be really spectacular.
Brilliant. And then you did the Hub Home to Ribblehead up over the top. It was done into a 16-mile day.
Yeah, it's a big day that. From Hubberhome over to the Ribblehead Viaduct. But it's probably the highlight as well in terms of walking. Once you leave Hubberhome, you're into rough upland, moorland, and it climbs, and you reach the high point on the trail about halfway along that section, You then join the Pennine Way for a short distance, and from there you can see all the 3 Yorkshire peaks as well, Ingleborough, Whernside and Pen y Ghent. Then you drop down to Ribblehead Viaduct, and as you drop down you've got a view of the viaduct as you approach Ribblehead. So yeah, it's a big day, but it's spectacular as well.
And
very different to the Dales.
It is, and it's iconic. That Ribblehead Viaduct is the Yorkshire Dales, isn't it? Especially with Whernside sat behind. It's an iconic view.
You might be looking to get there just as a train goes across as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Even better, a steam train, isn't it? And then from Ribblehead over to Sedbergh. So Sedbergh's famous for its private school, isn't it? So that's quite a nice section from Ribblehead over.
Yeah, I like this section. You climb for a little way out of Ribblehead and then drop down into Dentdale, and you basically follow Dentdale all the way. And again, it's a beautiful Yorkshire Dale, limestone dale, and you pass through Dent, which is a fantastic little village. I went to the local heritage centre as well for a cup of tea, and that's really worth having a look in. Doesn't cost anything to get in. And it's a great place to have a look around, and tells you a lot about the history of that area. And that's a really nice section. And then out to Sedbergh, and as you say, again a great market town, famous for Sedbergh School, nestled below the Howgill Fells in the background. So again, great location.
Fantastic. And then it's Sedbergh to Burnside. I know you did an overnight Kendal. We managed to get some accommodation at Burnside. We've been starting to book some trips on it, or I said we can push you out to Kendal. So again, you're on the edge of the Dales now, aren't you? As you're pushing away towards the motorway, aren't you?
Yeah. And again, that's a very varied day. Because the geology changes on that section, so does the landscape, and it becomes much more undulating. So up and down, but nothing too steep or long. And as you move away from Sedbergh, of course, what you start to get are views into the Lake District as well. And there's certainly one point that, again, when you kind of go around the corner, you'll have a good view of the Langdale Pikes. And then you basically drop down to Burnside, which is a nice little place, not far away from Kendal.
Brilliant. And then your final day is taking you into the heart of the Lake District of Burnside, of Bowness on Windermere, which is Bowness on Windermere's most popular places in the Lake District. It's a bit of a culture shock, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit like arriving in Blackpool from the quiet Dales. But again, as you approach Windermere, you're above the valley. So where the Dales Way actually finishes, there's a great viewpoint and everything. You see the whole of Windermere and up into the Langdale Fells, and then you drop down into Bowness. So it's a really good finish. Plenty of good tea shops in Bowness.
That's it. And there's quite a nice communication, because again, if you come by car and you arrive to Ilkley, we can take you back for your car. But if you come by train, it's only a short walking distance to the railway station in Bowness, isn't it?
It is. I got the train back. It's a couple of miles walk. But you can get a bus from Bowness up to the train station at Windermere, so it's not really a problem at all.
Yeah, and alternatives, loads of places in Bowness if you want to stay that extra night, isn't it? So thinking about it as a whole, the Dales Way, what do you think the highlight of the holiday? Which was the best days walking, or what was the best thing that really sticks in your mind as the Dales Way?
I think in terms of the landscape, I would say Upper Wharfdale and the crossing over to Ribblehead in terms of spectacular landscapes. So that was, I really enjoyed those sections, and as I mentioned, I think if you do those earlier in the year, the flower meadows would be just fantastic on that route. So in terms of landscape, it would be those two sections. I think I enjoyed a lot of the history along the way, so we haven't mentioned it, but there are a couple of Quaker meeting houses which go back to the 1670s, which you can visit, so they're really quite interesting. You've got Bolton Abbey. There's also, we haven't mentioned it again, there is just slightly off the trail in Wharfdale, there's a castle you can go and visit, which is just a couple of miles off the trail. So I really enjoyed the historical side as well. And then you've got the industrial landscape as well, so you've got the Ribblehead Viaduct, and when you cross over into Dentdale, there's quite a lot of history around the mining there, and in Dent itself, where they used to quarry black marble for Victorian fireplaces. And I can remember that from a kid, and I always wondered where it came from, and where it comes from Dentdale. So different highlights for different sections and for different reasons, I think. But overall, it's a fantastic.
There's something for everyone that sounds it on
there
that
is.
trail, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finally, if you only had one tip or one thing to recommend if you're walking the Dales Way with Shepherd's Walks Holiday, what would that be?
I think my overall recommendation would be just to take your time and not rush it. It is a walk to be savoured because there is so much to see and it's so varied. Also, if you can spend a bit of time around Grassington, it's a lovely village and it's your last taste of civilization proper till you get across to Sedbergh, so it's worth having a look around there. But overall, I think it's just take your time on the walk, enjoy it.
Fantastic. So thank you very much this afternoon, Paul, for spending a little bit of time with us and talking you through the Dales Way. As I say, if you need any more other information about the Dales Way, please get in touch with us here at Shepherd's Walks Holidays. Download the dossiers from our website and we can help you. And again, if there's any specific questions regarding the trail, don't hesitate to get in touch. We'll either answer them ourselves or we'll bring the main man himself in, Paul, and he can answer those questions for you. So thank you very much for spending a bit of time with us this afternoon, Paul. It is appreciated.